Tatsuka was the most powerful magician in the whole world. However, after a big war, he lost all of his memories and his family. To keep himself safe, he decided to act like he was not powerful at all. He dressed up as a normal, everyday person and went to a magic school to hide how strong he really was. But in a very surprising turn of events, during the very first part of the story, he somehow already found himself connected to 4 different girls. It was his very first day at the Academy of Sorcery, and Tatsuka walked in through the grand magical gates with the other students. But suddenly, a girl bumped right into him and almost fell. Yet, Tatsuka caught her just in time before she hit the ground. Her face turned bright red, while her friends behind her laughed at the scene. So, Tatsuka quickly apologized, but the girl snapped back asking who would just stand in the middle of the path like that. And when she heard he was a new student, all the girls froze in shock because they had already heard rumors about a new arrival, who wasn't from a great noble family or from a long line of sorcerers, but rather from a completely ordinary household, which could only mean that Tatsuka was that very boy. And as soon as this spread, the nearby students began whispering about him. And then, another boy walked up, introduced himself as Albert. So Tatsuka politely gave his own name and held out his hand for a handshake, but Albert arrogantly smacked it away, declaring that this academy was meant for aristocrats, or at least those born to sorcerer bloodlines, bluntly saying that commoners like him didn't belong here. But Tatsuka ignored the insult, which only made Albert angrier. And as he tried to start a fight, Tatsuka calmly dodged every attempt until Albert turned again to strike. But a red-haired girl suddenly stepped in and stopped him, and Albert froze in shock because she was from one of the top 3 richest families. So he glared at Tatsuka with disdain, sneered that a commoner would never truly be accepted, and stormed off while the red-haired girl introduced herself as Amelia and kindly asked if Tatsuka was all right, to which he thanked her sincerely, shook her hand, and she congratulated him for being the first commoner ever admitted to the school, telling him to come to her if he needed anything. And soon after the entrance ceremony began, where the headmistress of Arnold Academy, Abby Granite, addressed the students with an inspiring speech, reminding them that while they had been chosen for their magical talent, they must also train themselves to become the best sorcerers in the world. And then she introduced the first-year student representative who would deliver a speech. And to everyone's surprise, Amelia walked up on stage and passionately encouraged her classmates to face the hardships ahead with courage, earning applause. After which Tatsuka went to his classroom and introduced himself, getting mixed reactions, some welcoming him normally, while others muttered angrily about how a commoner could even enter this academy. Then their homeroom teacher, Helena Gray, appeared, introducing herself as Professor Gray and asking everyone to take their seats, and Amelia once again greeted Tatsuka warmly, shocking the class since they couldn't believe someone from such a high family would talk to him. And when Tatsuka sat down, he drifted off staring out the window at the city beyond, slipping into war memories until he snapped back when a piece of chalk flew at him, which he caught between his fingers before it suddenly burst in his hand. And Professor Gray began lecturing on magician ranks, explaining bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and finally, the divine level of the Supreme Magician, the absolute peak that only 7 in history had ever reached. Among them, the blazing magician who was the current headmistress, the bewitching magician obsessed with fame, and the warship magician who vanished after the Far East War, declaring that all their goals should be to reach that supreme level. But Albert again mocked why a commoner like Tatsuka was here, only to be scolded harshly as Professor Gray told them every student entered properly, and backgrounds didn't matter. And the first class of the term was Magic Basics, where spellcasting was like programming and ended with materialization, a construct that could also be dispelled, theoretically unlimited, but bound only by a magician's strength, with matter divided into solid, liquid, gas, and plasma. And when a student asked about antimatter code, the professor said no one had discovered such power that Enworth's dual code theory was doctoral level and unnecessary for them now. And Amelia as representative proudly demonstrated by creating an ice wall, while Tatsuka's attempt fell short, making Albert sneer that useless magicians should not exist. But later in the library, Tatsuka greeted Elisa, who had asked the question before, and she said she admired Dr. Ensworth, and Tatsuka replied that he too admired her deeply, which thrilled her since it was her first time meeting someone her age who was also a fan. And when Tatsuka noticed her pointed ears and realized she was a half-elf, she admitted she hid out of shame since people judged her, and she thought Tatsuka was very mature, reminding her of a late companion who used to say the same. And when Tatsuka returned to his dorm, he found Ivy waiting, who didn't mind his commoner status at all. And during outdoor training, he met senior Rebecca Barley and politely introduced himself, leaving Ivy shocked to discover she too was from one of the 3 noble families equal to royalty, with Amelia being the eldest daughter of the Ross family, admired for her honesty and first-class magic skill. And right after that, another girl appeared, a twin-tailed blonde, who ran into him, demanding he should have moved aside, recognizing him as the rumored commoner, and Tatsuka flattered her endlessly, saying he knew the Cavaliers but not Cleveland, then quickly praising her family's beauty, raising her favorability instantly. And in sword class, she fought Albert while students mocked Tatsuka as a withered magician, but she blocked Albert's strikes with ease, and when Albert furiously attacked again, Tatsuka casually stepped in and crushed him. And at night, strange noises echoed in the dorm while Tatsuka and Ivy bonded closely, and as he enjoyed academy life, he thought of joining 2 clubs, though Ivy warned him it would be tough. He pulled out a golden card to prove his strength and went to the Hunter Club filled with muscle-bound men who explored forests, rivers, and glaciers, where they thought he was too skinny, not knowing that under his clothes, his body was carved from real training. And when their leaders saw him, he was very satisfied. The members were even more impressed when Tatsuka revealed his Golden Hunter's license, bowing in admiration, and the leader directly regarded him as the master of their club. After that, he went to the Flower and Grass Club, which was filled with girls. But Tatsuka was genuinely interested in the way plants survived, blooming even in the harshest conditions. And although it was all girls, for him, it was no hardship. Senior Tina objected, believing Tatsuka only joined because of Rebecca, and the girls whispered while Rebecca clapped her hands and decided to leave the matter to Tina. If after a test Tina thought Tatsuka was unfit, he would be rejected. Tatsuka tried to be kind, but Tina refused, certain he would soon show his true colors. He was brought to a rooftop overgrown with weeds and told to clear them and build a flower bed within 1 week. Tatsuka took off his coat and got to work. On the first day, he cleared all the weeds. The second day, he loosened the soil, and by the third day, he had finished the flower bed. Rebecca came with her favorite sandwich to visit, and seeing Tatsuka liked it, she was happy. He asked her to request the academy to bring it in more often, then noticed his fine physique. Tatsuka explained it was from training in the countryside forests. Rebecca grew excited, saying it was her first time touching male muscles, and it was very beneficial. Amelia and the others were unhappy with this pig-hoof Tatsuka, not content with Amelia's attention, but now also drawing Rebecca's. A week later, seeing Tatsuka's perfect results, even the proud Tina admitted he passed the test. Soon after, the principal entrusted Tatsuka with a mission. Spies from the Empire had infiltrated the kingdom and could even be hiding in the academy, and he asked Tatsuka to keep watch and handle it discreetly. On the road, Tatsuka startled twin-tailed Clarice, who was observing pillbugs. Clarice admitted he was strange, being a high noble who loved insects, which left him friendless. But Tatsuka said this uniqueness was good, that it was an honor to be his friend. Clarice was moved, though Tatsuka worried he had upset him and quickly apologized for assuming their friendship. Later, the teacher announced a survival test in the forest. Everyone wanted to team with Amelia, but her gaze went to Tatsuka. Ivy asked to join his team too, not minding his weak magic since, as a golden hunter, he could defeat hundreds. Tatsuka also noticed the lonely Elisa and invited her, making her happy, though she feared she'd drag them down. The last teammate, of course, was Amelia. The blue-haired boy grew uneasy. The test required them to reach the forest center in 1 day, collecting stamps from checkpoints along the way. The more stamps, the higher the score. Dangerous monsters lurked within, and asking for help would mean failing. Before departure, Elisa trembled, but Tatsuka felt nostalgic, remembering how he often roamed mountains and forests. Amelia suggested roles: men as forwards, she as center, Elisa as rearguard. But Tatsuka preferred to be a free fighter. Soon they met their first monster, and Tatsuka leapt ahead, slashing it in 2 and gaining a stamp. While other groups struggled, Twintail grew excited seeing bug monsters. Tatsuka's day of performance shocked everyone, not only his combat strength, but also his survival knowledge, which he credited to countryside forests. Amelia grew suspicious. Even she thought his explanation was flimsy. She realized Tatsuka was a strange one, but she too was unusual. A Ross family daughter fighting alongside commoners, rejecting noble bloodline pride and valuing hard work. With friends who treated her as equal, she felt truly happy. Ivy said everything was thanks to Tatsuka, and those words reminded her of fallen comrades. Compared to the battlefield, this place was paradise, but she wasn't sure if she deserved peace. Seeing her sleeping companions reminded her of her master's advice to hide her identity as the warship magician unless she found true friends. The next day, screams echoed ahead. Tatsuka rushed forward and found the blue-haired boy crying for help, immediately saving him with a single blow. Yet once safe, the boy returned to arrogance, unable to stand a commoner like Tatsuka. Hidden in the shadows, a schemer revived the monster stronger than before. Tatsuka remained calm, but couldn't break its hard shell with his weapon, so he prepared to unleash hidden strength. Just then, his companions combined their powers, giving him the perfect chance. Tatsuka plunged his blade into its belly and split it in 2. The blue-haired boy was crushed, saved by the very commoner he despised. The team gathered all the stamps and reached the goal. But apart from Twin Tail, the others gave cold responses, convinced he only succeeded thanks to Emilia. Tatsuka knew the nobles hated seeing him succeed, but the girls told him not to care. First place was theirs, no matter what others said. And that was exactly why Emilia hated the noble system. At that time, Tatsuka's master was both nervous and excited. Though she was the one who sent him here, she hadn't seen him for 2 months. As Tatsuka approached, she quickly adjusted her clothes, asking about his academy life. Tatsuka raised his right hand, saying it still hadn't fully recovered, and his master judged it would take at least 5 years. And during this time, Tatsuka must not use that power. But if there ever came a desperate moment, she told him to judge for himself because, after all, he had inherited her legacy as the warship magician. Today, she mainly called him because of rumors spreading among magic researchers. Normally, she never cared for rumors, but matters about magic memory were different. Most research focused on the magic code itself. But her studies were about the brain, since magic was processed inside the mind using code theory before being materialized. That part of the brain storing magic was called magic memory, and if fully understood, it could unlock the truth of the world. However, some people wanted shortcuts. Unwilling to spend years on research, they directly cut open magicians' heads. They once tried to recruit her, but she knew they had lost their humanity.